All right, friends, good morning to you all. There's a live shot outside of, I believe, our building. You can see Old Glory there kind of wafting in the wind. It's a bit breezy. We are going to start picking up more of this wind as we move through the rest of the day, about 10 to 15 mile per hour winds to be more precise, with an occasional gust at 20 or 25 as we try to get done with some of the storm activity out there. Good morning to you. Good late morning as we stream across Facebook, YouTube, and other streaming sites. We've got ourselves a lot of active weather from earlier this morning to discuss. We've got a lot of active weather on its way closer to around Jefferson County and portions of Atchison County. It's a severe weather day that we're monitoring for. We could be dealing with some very gusty conditions, or perhaps getting into some rather large hail, maybe something a little bit more like this. Pretty wild stuff. This was actually from yesterday, where we had just a marginal risk of severe storm activity, but this played out in Harrisonville, Missouri, closer to around 6:30 at night. And you can see it's about the size of that tennis ball there. That's about your 2-inch in diameter, slightly greater than that. Now, this wasn't everywhere, but we did see a lot of these stones kind of stretching across the Harrisonville area, but they did vary in size, anywhere from about pea size all the way up to what you just saw there, which was that tennis-sized ball hail. And I could tell you, I could do some serious damage to you if you were caught in one of those systems where we were dropping hail of that kind of caliber. But we do have some active storms out there, not necessarily bringing in that size hail, but let's bring you out to the radar system and show you what we're talking about. There it is, one set of storms moving out from earlier this morning and another set moving on in as we move forward in time. You can see that storm activity off around Jefferson County and moving into portions of now Livingston, or I should say Leavenworth County, I should say, and even into portions of Leavenworth. So that's the storm system that we're going to be getting really close and involved with as we, let me go ahead and start zooming in here and start talking about some of that storm activity. You can see the coloration that we're dealing with here. Usually those dark reds and oranges, it's indicative of getting into some heavier downpours, right? Not necessarily height, and that's what we're going to be talking about next. We're going to actually split one of these storm cells kind of in half for you and show you what we're talking about. Let's actually get more involved with this particular part of the storm, right off around Oskaloosa and off around Valley Falls. That's where we're seeing some of the more stronger storm activity, right? We're seeing some of the lightning strikes out there. Mind you, the lightning that we have set up here is not over the past 15 minutes. It's not over the past 5 minutes. It's actually just over the past 3 minutes. That's it. That's what we're dealing with right now. So you can see that it's been relatively active for us. And we have been registering gusts at about 30, 35 miles per hour with this kind of cell that's moving on through rather quickly, by the way, through this neighborhood. But let me see if we can actually cut this thing in half and show you a portion of it there. There we go. Pretty interesting stuff. You can see on the top of my head here where we've got like about 20,000 feet. That's your typical kind of thunderstorm. This isn't actually breaking the cap. We're not talking about a severe thunderstorm threat. And usually if we do, we're busting past about 30,000 feet, climbing into the atmosphere. But right now, everything's kind of sort of settling in somewhere around 17,000 to about 20,000 feet. And that tells us, yeah, we're definitely dealing with some heavier downpours. We're obviously getting into the frequent lightning here, but for this to actually build up to a severe weather potential, we're going to hold off until we start climbing that energy into, deeper parts of the atmosphere, right? Getting into 25, 30,000 feet. That's when we start to get more concerned about getting into a lot more inflow, a lot more outflow, which would allow us to get into those gustier conditions, which then bring in maybe those severe thunderstorm warnings, right? The criteria for this is that we need damaging hail at least at 1 inch in diameter. That has to be radar indicated at least. And the same thing goes for gusty winds. We have to get that up to about 59, 58 miles per hour to be considered a damaging wind gust. And that may push in or issue that severe thunderstorm warning. We're not there yet. And obviously by the heights of these storms and the intensity of the storms inside of them, we're keeping them on the lower side of the atmosphere, anywhere kind of sort of hovering between about 10,000 to about 15,000 feet for the most part. So that's good news. The not so good news is that, well, obviously we're still dealing with heavy rain and it's still a bit of a breezy situation out in these areas of maybe Valley Falls and pushing over towards Oskaloosa. So you want to stay, indoors on this one for sure. When it comes down to commuting, give yourself another 20 minutes. let this kind of sort of bypass your area. Then it's going to be much safer on those highways, maybe your neighborhood roads. That'll be best for you to hold off on. You know, we're not getting to the point where you need to find that most interior portion of your home, but it's definitely safer to stay away from the windows, especially with the lightning involved with this particular storm cell. You know, heading off to a bedroom or something like that, a little bit safer than maybe in those big, huge bay windows that you might have in your living room or your family room. That'll be a best bet in this kind of a situation. And again, letting these storms pass. They are moving quickly, which is definitely some good news. We've been registering anywhere from about 30 to about 50 miles per hour, the speed of these storms. So they're actually trekking through one given area at a time rather quickly, which is definitely some good news for us. So we do have a severe thunderstorm threat. I'm going to show you where we're at with the risk model here. I'm going to pop that up for you if it'll load up. Let's see if we can get that loaded. Is that going to load for us? It's not going to load because I have to put my cursor over here. There we go. Put the cursor over. Pop that in for us. There we are. So we're still under that slight risk, and you can tell that we're still under it off around areas of Kansas City, right on through I-70, and then stretching up towards the north there, almost to the border. But we're looking at the most aggressive storm activity now with our latest updates to actually stretch more around maybe Richmond and Odessa in our forecast model runs. Don't get me wrong, there's still an opportunity for some isolated events now around St. Joe and perhaps around Cameron as we make it closer and closer to 11 a.m. all the way up to about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's now our big open window for kind of that severe thunderstorm potential. The other thing that we've monitored now in the update to our forecast models is we're not dealing with more of a widespread situation. It will be a bit more of an isolated situation with these storm cells instead of kind of sort of broadening out and affecting 4, 5, 6 counties all at one time. So that's even more good news to our atmosphere. So the big question is, well, okay, what happened here? Why are we breaking down the storm activity? Well, just like what we discussed on Friday, we needed convection to occur in different locations around the region, not necessarily smack dab right here in our neck of the woods, but we wanted convection to happen more out west or out north where the storms were starting to populate first. That would have aided in bringing in some of that moisture from our area and suck it out west and lessen the instability to our atmosphere here. And that's kind of sort of what's happened with this storm cell. We've kind of sort of gathered up all the energy from out around Nebraska, sucked that dry, and now the storm system needs something else to feed off of. So what's in close proximity but Kansas City and the northern Missouri kind of area. So it's grabbed some of that moisture now, and it has now lessened the threat of major instability to our atmosphere here, which allows for, instead of a scattered or widespread threat for severe weather, it's more of an isolated situation. So that's all in all a very good situation that we're in. We're also dealing with less warmth than what we dealt with the other time that we had the severe weather activity, right? Pushing into these upper 80s and lower 90s. We're more likely to see lower and middle 80s today because of the heavier cloud content we've seen since this morning, and it just continues on throughout not only the metro, but most of the viewing area. So that's aiding us to less warm air lift to mix and allow for instability to continue on in our mid-levels. We're lacking in that as well. So two good things to happen to our atmosphere to lessen that severe thunderstorm threat. But nonetheless, we've still got to watch out for some wild, wet weather out there. All right, let's go ahead and go into the criteria of what kind of severe weather, when we get into severe weather threat, you know, what kind of phenomena are we looking at here? What are we most concerned with? And we are looking at, if we can pop this up, still wind and a hail development situation. That's what we're going to be monitoring for, is wind and hail. We're still looking at about a moderate threat. If we do see that severe thunderstorm activity occur, it's a moderate threat that we're going to see those gusts coming in 59 to maybe 65 miles per hour. I wouldn't be surprised if we get into a 70 mile per hour gust, but it should be more of an isolated event, not a broad, widespread threat this time around. And when it comes down to your hail, you can see we're at that moderate kind of threat for 2-inch in diameter hail. Again, this is going to be more of an isolated situation, and if we do see hail, it's more likely that you'll have a range of about pea or marble size up to about an inch and a half, but the opportunity to see 2-inch in diameter is still not necessarily out of the picture for us. So that's going to be something that we're going to continue to monitor. We still have a small threat for tornado development, but especially as we lose instability to the atmosphere, that's going to allow us to see less moisture advection into the mid-levels, Basically what that means is we're transferring moisture from the surface up into the mid-levels. Again, that's that creating that mixing situation, that convection situation. So that may lessen our opportunity for even rotation or tornado development. All of this is good news, but we still want to be wary of those storms that may pop. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the timing of these storms and the intensity of these storms now. I'm going to pop that into our forecast. I'm going to show you, I think I'm going to show you two different model runs. That's what I want to do. I'm going to show you the HRRR model run, and I'm going to show you the NAM model run. All of these are different models that we like to use. We also have what's called the graph model run, and actually IBM, headquarters off in Atlanta, they actually create that model and derive that into our computer systems as well. So that's another model that we like to use, but I digress. I think we're going to go ahead and just use the two models just to give you a good idea, a fair point of where we're looking at with our kind of storm activity and how it's lessened from being this scattered situation to more of an isolated situation, right? So here we are, 10 o'clock in the morning. And we've already obviously bypassed this. And you can see the HRRR on this particular situation has lessened the threat of that dark red or magentas out there. But let me push this closer to now around 11 a.m. and then maybe even around noon. And you can see how it kind of sort of populates there off around Odessa. You see that around Warrensburg. Much more isolated, much more less concentrated and widespread from St. Joe, Cameron, and Bethany, which is literally what we were showing in our forecast models at about 5 o'clock this morning. So there's already been a major change to the atmosphere here that's allowed us to change up our model forecast for that severe weather threat. So again, better news here, but nonetheless, we need to be on deck for Odessa, you know, maybe Warrensburg, I-70 area, and even up towards Bethany, even up towards Chillicothe. Just because I'm showing you colorations in yellows and oranges does not mean that we won't get into maybe an isolated severe storm in one of those areas. So it's just something that we have to be wary about. But overall, it's just a better opportunity or better situation that we're in for that severe weather activity. So that's the HRRR that we're looking at. We're going to keep on going here, move forward. And then even getting into 1 o'clock in the afternoon, a few showers left over for Kansas City in the metro, up through I-35 near Cameron. There we are at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And finally, as we move closer to the early evening, maybe you're getting done with work. Maybe you're going to head out to the baseball game, right? The Detroit Tigers and the Royals are playing out there at the stadium. It's looking better and better for us. And by the way, it should be mild with the temperatures, middle upper 70s around the time of the game, which is about 7:10 this evening. So it's actually pretty good for you all the way around. Now, that's if we can pan out the HRRR model run. Now, there's another one that we're monitoring too, and like I said, it's the NAM that we track, and this particular model run is very aggressive. Okay, this loves to show crazy wild colorations in our forecast. Sometimes it pinpoints, but it's not as accurate as what we normally see with the HRRR model run when it comes to our particular viewing area. Elsewhere in the country, the NAM does better than the HRRR. But in this part of the country, the HRRR does better than the NAM model. But nonetheless, I want to show you this anyways, just so you guys have a perspective on the situation, right? I'm going to back this up because right now we're showing 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Let's get to about 11 a.m. So you can see, even at 11 o'clock in the morning, that we've got Sedalia could be looking at maybe a severe weather threat out there, but it's not necessarily over Warrensburg or Odessa. It's kind of in the vicinity of that kind of location that we saw with the HRRR. So we're going to call this actually, a little bit of confidence in both models kind of lining up in the same location, because it is basically in that same kind of vicinity. So that's where we show some confidence in the models kind of coinciding together. But nonetheless, stretching up towards the north, we're still just looking at some heavier downpours, maybe a wear and tear thunderstorm closer to Nodway County or perhaps off around Maryville. And again, let's go ahead and push this over towards 1 o'clock in the afternoon. There's 12. Sedalia again getting into a bit more of an aggressive storm threat. And then we hit about 1 o'clock. And this model run says, no, we're not quite done yet. We may have a couple of cells pop on up isolated back up to the north, where we were kind of sort of registering earlier this morning better chances for that severe weather to kind of sort of form up. So perhaps just to the south of Cameron, or perhaps around Nodway, Worth, and Gentry counties out there, and even ruling in maybe Douglas or Atchison counties, Jefferson County out there towards the western Kansas. It's still not necessarily, clean and clear for you guys to get away from maybe a stronger storm cell or two. Not necessarily severe, but it's still something that we'll monitor closely. Let's continue on into the day side. where again, this wants to hold on to maybe a few more isolated, stronger storm cells by about mid-afternoon, and then it starts to break it down finally as we make it on in towards the early evening. This model, however, does notice that it still holds on to a few pop-up showers. Not necessarily just cloud cover, which is what the HRRR is modeling, but this one is saying, we're still not done. There could be still enough out there, maybe around the time you get done with work, that you might need the umbrella, maybe a couple of whip whaps of the window wipers on your car as you're maybe traveling down the road there, I-70, 435, 635, throughout the loop there, and just getting from point A to point B. So all in all, the models are showing less active weather for us for severe storms, and that's good news, right? I love that. I love to show you some good news in our forecast model runs. It doesn't mean that we can, put our defenses down here. We still need to be wary. We still need to be cautious because there's still a threat out there for some stronger storm cells, and we've already been rather active for the metro and for the viewing area as a whole. So we're going to go forward and bring you back into the satellite radar system one more time to show you how active we are. And it's been really off around Jefferson and, even Lawrence out there towards Douglas County, but Jefferson County, and then getting in towards Atchison and portions of Leavenworth, now getting into some heavier downpours. And there it is. Let's see if we can actually get into just holding it off and showing you the radar, because I think, we've got some active actual storm activity with it, right? Showing you briefly the lightning that has ensued from this. So let's get a little bit closer, because we've got a lot of friends and family out there, right? We've got Oskaloosa, McLuth, maybe we'll call it maybe Tonganoxie for sure. Not so bad over around Lawrence. You could be dealing with some light to moderate shower activity, but as you travel down I-70, getting closer to maybe Linwood, you're going to get into some heavier downpours there. And then obviously your state routes there around Tonganoxie up towards Leavenworth and Easton, Winchester. There's definitely some heavier rainfall here. You're going to be hearing that rumble of thunder, some flashes of lightning, but so far we've broken down the storm activity so much in this area that a severe weather threat is not looking likely at this time. That's definitely some good news, and it comes with the height of the thunderstorms themselves, and we've kind of sort of given you a cutout of this sort of particular area. Let me see if it's still involved in our region. Popping that up. It's obviously moved off from our 3D model imagery. You can see that it's just grabbing the fringe of some of the stronger storm cell activity. But notice even where that's at, which is kind of sort of around 10,000 feet. You can see just above my head, we have the feet right there of 20,000 feet. That's going up into the atmosphere. And your traditional, severe thunderstorm is usually pushing about 30 to 40,000 feet. And then you get into the really bad stuff pushing up closer to about 45 to 50,000 feet. That's usually something that's going to show you, anywhere from softball size hail to potentially even tornado rotation. I mean, we're talking about some serious energy being pushed into and out of a storm cell like that. But in this particular location, the good news is we're dealing with something that's on the lower side of the atmosphere. So there's not a lot of energy to push everything up and produce a severe weather potential that may get us into 60 or 70 mile per hour winds, or maybe getting into that, hail development of 2 inches in diameter or greater. So that's all good news. This is still producing wind at 30 to 40 miles per hour. This is still heavy downpours, low visibility on the roadways, maybe ponding on roadways or neighborhood streets. And obviously, this is producing a reasonable amount of lightning. And with that being said, with that reasonable amount of lightning, I want to get back to this map because it doesn't seem like there's a lot there. There are a couple of lightning strikes here or there. What is it, 18 or 20 lightning strikes there, Greg? Well, listen, that's out over the past just 3 minutes. Right, that's what I have it down at, is about 3 minutes. Usually we have these set at 15 minutes, and I think it's kind of silly to show you something at 15 minutes unless we really want to show you how powerful it's been over a long period of time. But this one's still pretty impressive to show over the past 3 minutes. We're looking at about 18 to 20 lightning strikes, and it's still, moving and grooving out there. You can see we get those flashes of the yellow, and then it stops and it goes into gray. After 3 minutes, you're going to see one of those gray lightning bolts disappear. And then, of course, we, start the clock over again with that 3 minute mark. So it's still pretty impressive, still pretty intense with that storm activity. We want to take this very seriously. If you are off around Perry, Oskaloosa area, you've got friends and family around Tonganoxie, maybe you got plans today, maybe you're about to head out the door, I would say postpone that. Easily about 20, 30 minutes. Let this heavier downpour stuff kind of sort of pass so you're a bit safer on those roadways. Is this an end-all be-all, head on over towards the basement, most interior area of your home? No, not necessarily in this situation. But I got to tell you, if you're in the living room and you've got those big bay windows, it'd be a good idea to maybe head to a bedroom instead and continue to watch with us and stream with us and, obviously tune into channel 5 to get all the latest on this information. But this is not one of those situations where we're finding the area within your home that you got to find the most walls between you and the outside. We are not in that level quite yet, and I'm actually very thrilled to mention that to you guys. Nonetheless, we're still under a slight risk for severe storm activity, and we're going to continue to monitor that for you. Right now, still our open windows really around this time period. We're getting closer to about 11 a.m. here, and continuing all the way. Oh, it is 11 a.m. right now. It's 11:09. There it is. There's your timing right there. So it's about 11 o'clock in the morning all the way up to about 1 or 2 p.m. That's going to be our open window to get into some severe weather. It is no longer looking to be a widespread scattered event. It is now looking to be much more of an isolated event, more kind of prone towards our eastern counties, closer to around maybe Richmond to Warrensburg area, perhaps around Odessa. I still don't want to rule out a couple of areas up towards the north, maybe closer to around Cameron, Chillicothe, up towards Bethany and Maryville. But again, this is looking to be a lot more of an isolated situation, more than a broad scattered situation where we may be talking 4, 5, 6 counties at a time getting into a severe weather threat. There's still an opportunity for us to get into some strong gusts within those isolated storm cells. There's still an opportunity to get into some damaging hail out there, whether that's property, obviously your car, your home, or yourself. We want to stay indoors if we get to that threat where you get into a severe thunderstorm warning. All right, we're going to continue to monitor it here. We are going to be live coming up in less than an hour. We've got your news at noon, and of course, we'll go into full details, even more so, about the thunderstorm threat as we go through that open window of potential severe weather with the rest of this storm system. But friends, it's looking much better for us all the way around. The temperature is going to be much more mild when the day ends here. We're still looking at low to middle 80s, so a slightly cooler opportunity for us, which means less active weather or less instability to our atmosphere. And all of that is good news to hone down the severe weather potential. But like I said, we are going to be live at noon. You could join us then. For now, I want you to check out Old Glory there outside of our studios. We've still got ourselves a little bit of a breeze out there we're tracking, but it looks like we'll be seeing clearer skies soon.